Good evening and welcome to Young Climber. We have returned yet again, and this week we are coming in with a big twist because we are looking for young achievers transitioning into university, and here to unpack a story that she was a part of. You've seen her before on Young Climber, but today we're not talking more on the professional journey. We are talking about an opportunity that led her to greater heights. Tenele Habangaan joins us once again, but today we're talking more about the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation Fellowship Program, which she was very much a part of. Tenele, welcome back to Young Climber.
Thank you so much, Bello. Happy to be back here.
I'm very excited to have you once again because now I get to know more details. I always say I never have enough time.
Yeah.
This is my chance, and to give the youth an opportunity to be a part of this exciting program. Just to track back the steps that led to the journey, or that led you into the journey of the fellowship program, can you tell us about your upbringing, your early education, and the moments before?
All right, cool. So I grew up in Hlangano, raised by my mom and dad. Primary school, I went to Ngwane Practicing Primary. And then for high school, I went to St. Michael's for Form 1 to Form 3. But then my mother had the idea that just doing normal IGCSE wouldn't really put me in the best position to be able to attend a South African university. So she moved me to Sisekelo High School in Big Bend, where I did my grade 11 and grade 12. And that is where I then got introduced to the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation through the principal, Mrs. J. Thompson. And yeah, that's how my journey with the fellowship started.
Exciting fact, actually, because that's how I learned about it first, at Sisekelo. But then for tertiary education, you were then, privileged enough to be granted an Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation scholarship. How did you first hear about it? What was the mood like? I know I have an experience, but it might have been different. We were in the same place, of course, but my experience might have been different. Did someone come to the school to speak to you as learners? How did it happen, and why do you think it was the right scholarship for you?
All right, so for me, it was pretty early in the years of Ellen Gray, and so they visited the school and had a chat with Mrs. Thompson, and they left some application forms with her and left the task of identifying who would apply with her. I was fortunate enough to have already had an established relationship with the staff at the school. So Mrs. Thompson approached me and she told me about the foundation, and I was super excited. She handed me the application forms and gave me an opportunity, because I was a boarder, so she gave me an opportunity to go home and speak to my mother and have my mother just help me through the application form process. And that is how I had my foot in. Yeah. It wasn't all the way in, but it was a foot into the process of application and being selected. I think in the application process, I really relied on my mother to remind me of who I am and just to maintain that real and true self, because I didn't want to present a dream of who I could be, but present who I am at my core. And so she just reminded me of the values that she and my dad had taught me, which was determination, strong work ethic, the will to excel, and a love for learning, understanding, and knowledge. And so that's what I presented as I filled the application form. I think the other difficult part was knowing exactly what I was going to study. Everyone had wanted to push me to medicine, but unfortunately medicine was not one of the courses that was being sponsored by the foundation, and so I had to pick something different. I had a lot of chats with my sister, with her friends, and the idea was engineering. Yeah. I knew I wanted to do engineering, and so I picked electrical engineering. And for the universities, I had two options of either Wits University or University of Cape Town.
And as you speak about the scholarship or the fellowship program rather, it's like you already knew that you were going to be a part of it. I mean, aligning your career to what is required with the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation Fellowship Program is a big move. It's like you're guaranteed to be in there. Why did you think this one was a cut above the rest?
To be honest with you, Bello, for me, the motivation was primarily financial. So I had lost my father when I was just finishing grade 6, and my mother was now sustaining myself and my sisters. And when I was at Sisegelo, I was not the only child in school. My sister was also at university doing masters, and my mother was paying fees for both of us. And for me, this presented an opportunity to alleviate my mother of the financial pressure. And I looked at the courses that they were supporting, and they didn't look too bad. It wasn't like, oh, actuarial science, I could never do that. Yeah. It was engineering, it was sciences, and those are things that I always had strengths in and things that I liked from a very young age. And so it was a no-brainer for me. It was 2 birds with 1 stone, helping my mother out financially and also advancing my education in something that I knew I would enjoy.
And after the whole application process, I'm sure it's the period where you remain faithful that, you know, you receive a letter back. And you just take us back to that period, the application process and receiving that you're in letter.
Yeah, so it was a very long process. It wasn't anything like you just submit your application form and you get a letter back. The communication back was you got in for an interview. And this was going to be the very first big interview that I'd ever done in my life. I remember we had the interview Eswatini in Matsapa, and it was with the founding chief executive officer, Anthony Farr, and I was so terrified, but at the same time I felt super important to have such important people afford me their time and their attention to hear my story and consider me for this prestigious opportunity. And so during the interview, I felt it wasn't so much an interrogation, but more them just trying to unpack who I am and find out my core values and my vision for the future. And so after that interview, I even have the pictures still of that day. Yeah. I remember I was excited. My mom had driven me there, and when I came out of the interview, I told her how excited I was, and that even if I didn't get in, this had already opened my mind to so many opportunities and so many ideas. And so then I got the call that I could go for the selection camp. And oh my, I was never ready. So they flew me out of Eswatini. This was my first time flying out of the country without my family. And so just that already had taught me how to be responsible for my own life, for my own self. And then when I got to the selection camp, I met all these amazing young people with bright minds, bright ideas, and trust me, I felt intimidated. It was like, oh my word, this tiny little girl from Eswatini, and now I have to contend against hundreds of South African children who exude confidence and know what they're here for. It was scary. But we got through. It was a 3-day brutal boot camp. I will not be sweet about it. It was a brutal boot camp of business analysis, analyzing case studies of real businesses, pitching solutions for those businesses, and being evaluated like live, giving feedback to your pitch, to your business ideas live. And I remember this one time during a pitch, my mom called me and my phone was not on silent. And my heart broke because I knew that had already ruined the pitch. Yeah. And I remember the whole team got a red. Yeah. And it was so scary. But getting through it and just getting to the end of those 3 days was inspiring because I'd already learned skills that I hadn't been exposed to in my primary and high school education. And so for me, it was like, even if I don't make it, this is already great exposure. I know what life after university will look like. And so when I got the call to say I had been accepted into the foundation, oh my word, I was so excited. And my mother was overjoyed. I remember she cried. And it was a very emotional moment because it was a success story, not just in terms of the finances, but in terms of what the opportunities I could, what it was bringing. And I was so excited.
Excellence started during varsity. What was your university and fellowship experience like during your varsity years?
Yeah, so I wish I could say it was straightforward, and that it was success from the get-go. But, you know, in everything, you have to go through some hardships.
Yeah.
And I remember getting to first year, and it was a shock to my system, the amount of academic work we had to do, being away from home, and just being isolated as Liswati in a foreign country. And so my first year wasn't so great, but I was so grateful to have the foundation to support me. I was given a program officer who was able to support me academically and just making sure that mentally I was well and able to achieve what needed to be achieved. Unfortunately, at the end of the year, my academic results weren't matching what the foundation needed. And so I was discontinued from the foundation. But because my activity within the fellowship program had been so perfect, they gave me the opportunity to say, fix the academics, and then you can come back in the next year. And so that's what I did. I put all my effort to get my academics right, and I was able to re-enter the fellowship program, and my mother was overjoyed by that again. And from there on, I just made sure that my academics were on point, and my entrepreneurial and activity for the fellowship was also on point. And I remember just having that support from the foundation. That is the one major thing that was highlighted to me, how they support you in things in terms of their offering. It's not just, here's money, here's a stipend, go do your thing. They actually care about developing the person that is in you and about developing a future leader who is able to think big and change the course of our continent.
And you know, university life, you speak of it, but it's known for shaping one's. What did that teach you, or how did it grow you as a person?
I think it continued to instill that value of that determination and that will to excel, and commitment. You know, motivation will fade. Trust me, motivation will fade. But if you're committed to something, committed to see it through to the end, you definitely have to have that life skill. And so the foundation was able to really grow that in me. I think also just being able to experience a lot of the offerings that they had within the fellowship program. I think one of the main and pivotal ones for me was when they made us do a strengths finder test. And my strengths, I'll be honest, when I compared them to the other candidate fellows, they were like, oh, do I belong? And when he did that, it completely shifted how I perceived myself and to be Tenele, whose strengths are ABC, and I'll show up as that. And that has really served me well up till this day.
And now we are in this day, which is what I want to talk about. How did the fellowship prepare you for life after tertiary education, this life?
Yeah, it's amazing. Like I said, I think from the get-go, the interviews, the selection camp, it was preparation for life after university, because those are things that you will experience after university. So university is all about getting the knowledge, getting the skills that you need for the workplace, for an industry. And the skills that they instilled in us, the problem solving, you know, they have a huge focus on the entrepreneurial mindset. And people might think, okay, that means I need to go and start a business. And that's what I thought too in my young context of an existing corporate organization. It can be in the context of your community. And so just having that skill instilled in me at that young age has truly helped me forge the path that I've managed to forge until now.
Beautiful story, Tenele, but we'll take a short commercial break. When we return, we'll talk about more on the foundation and, of course, entrepreneurship. That is our main focus right after the break.
The all-new FIFA Club World Cup is coming. 32 clubs in a mind-blowing 4-week tournament, all with one goal.
By the Ellen Gray Fellowship Program, of course.
Yes, so it supports most of the faculties that are found in the South African universities. They have 10 partner universities in South Africa. They support commerce, sciences, excluding medicine, veterinary science, and dentistry. Humanities is supported, law is supported, engineering is supported.
And we know that, applying for a scholarship can be such an intricate process. Can you emphasize the importance of authenticity for interested candidates? I know in the beginning you did say you didn't want to sell them a dream because Tenele Nanabo AI, they can write up about your life. So please just provide emphasis on just remaining authentic and genuine throughout your application process.
Yeah, so man, it's very important to be your authentic self. I think it's very easy to impress a person on paper, but the beauty of the application process is that you still have to go for an interview. You still have to go for the selection camp. And in that, they're not looking for AI. You're not going to sit in a room and churn out assessments. You're going to be interacting with actual humans. And so if you haven't put your authentic self on paper, the cracks will show. And so it's very important to just sit down and consider your true self and not be afraid, to reveal your true self, not be shy and not think that you have to be a certain standard. I think what Alan Gray Orbis Foundation showed me is that they embrace uniqueness. Yeah. They embrace diversity because there's so many diverse people within the fellowship, within the association. And it's a beautiful story, especially when they come together. They have these activities throughout the year. One of them is called the Jamboree, where everyone comes together from all over the countries, and it's amazing to see the diversity in characters and personalities, in the manner that people think as well, the ideas that people have. And I think it's an example of what the world is like. It would be remiss for the foundation to think that they can have only a single type of person because the world is diverse and we promote diversity.
And now bringing it back to you as Tenele and as a woman in STEM, why do you think representation and entrepreneurship are so important?
Representation is a very key part of our society. If you look at world population, it's 50% male, 50% female. If you look at, of the 8 billion people we have on the earth, 1.8 billion are people between the ages of 15 and 29 years. And that's a huge chunk that if we ignore, if we do not include, we're missing out on ideas. We're missing out on solutions that could change the face of the world. And so it's very important for these groups to be, number one, represented in our political and socioeconomic structures, and number two, to participate in them, and to also participate in entrepreneurship, because this is where the solutions are. These are the people who are in touch with the heartbeat of the community. And so if we are excluding them, we're excluding the heartbeat of the community, and our economies and politics will die, and there will be very minimal development.
And now, what has been your proudest moment since completing the fellowship program, even if it does not relate to the fellowship program? But I'm pretty sure each and every detail of your life, centers back to starting with the scholarship.
I think I have a lot of moments, but one that I'll pick on right now is probably my role within the energy sector in Eswatini. I never imagined I would get to a point where I'm able to sit in a room with executives and negotiate big contracts that could, greatly impact the country. And so just to have that privilege and to have that honor and respect offered to me as a valuable member of the team, as a valuable contributor to the direction that the country is going in terms of energy, is a big win. And I hope that it inspires other women within the nation to, dream about contributing to the economy, to the sectors that they're working in within Eswatini, and to just the trajectory of Eswatini into a prosperous nation.
Yeah. And now, having been a part of such a program and being the woman that you are, you carry so much power now. Are you currently mentoring or supporting any young women or students? If yes, what is your approach to mentorship?
So currently, I am mentoring one young lady in Zimbabwe, an electrical engineer as well, who is responsible for a solar power plant, which I'm very proud of. She's young, fresh out of uni, and a very dynamic and very talented woman. What I always try to do in my approach in mentoring young women is to ensure that I create for them a thinking environment. So an environment where they're able to access their most resourceful self in order to come up with solutions, not just for their journey, but for their communities or for their nations.
And very interesting question is, what excites you the most about the future of your field and the role that you play in shaping it?
Oh, okay. So it's a catch-22, I think. I think Africa is at the risk of being left behind in the energy sector.
Yeah.
There's so much development that's happening in the first world, and a lot of that development is not reaching our African people. But the exciting thing is seeing the ideas that are in our communities, the ideas that young people in Africa have, and the way that they are leveraging that technology that is being developed to create truly African solutions. Because I think even though the technology is there, we still need to apply the solutions to our African context.
And then finally, what legacy do you hope to leave through your work, your story, and your continued involvement with the Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation?
Ooh, okay. So at the end of the day, I think I don't want it to be about Tenele. I'd like for it to be about creating a community that has a respect and love for each other, a community that is resilient and determined to succeed, come what may. I'd also like for people to learn from me just that will to always give your best and to always excel. And finally, I think authenticity. Just be your true self and not be shy to project who you are and bring your full self into the world.
Well, thank you so much, Tenele, for joining us once again. And I think this was very insightful to the young people. This is an opportunity that you had and grabbed with both hands through loss and gain.
Yeah.
You just came up above the rest. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bello.
That is it from us here on Young Climber. Today we are coming to you from the Mbabane Library, where you could be fortunate enough to start your Ellen Gray Orbis Foundation application at. They have the resources for you to do all of that. So if you're in and around Mbabane, this is definitely the place for you. The applications are currently open and they are closing on the 31st of July. So you have more than enough time to be a part of this beautiful fellowship program that Tenele spoke about. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we've had the beautiful honor of speaking about a program that helps young people transition into university. You have the chance, so take the stand and start today. But from us here at Young Climber, it is good night and God bless.